Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Diksha Bisla. Let's start with the headlines. India's domestic airline issues advisory to alert passengers over possible delays due to bad weather as dense fog engulfs part of north, east and northeast India. Ukrainian authorities say nearly 500,000 people in Kyiv are left without power after a massive Russian attack targeting energy facilities across the country. They said a third of Kyiv's residents had no heat as temperatures hovered around 0 degrees Celsius. Ukrainian President Zelensky meets Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney ahead of his meeting with US President Donald Trump. Canada announces $2.5 billion Canadian dollars in additional economic aid to Ukraine. A group of 21 mostly Muslim countries, including Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, have issued joint statements rejecting Israel's move to recognize Somaliland. 3 countries that normalized ties with Israel in 2020, which are the UAE, Bahrain and Morocco, did not sign the statement. Israelis rally in Tel Aviv demanding an independent state commission to probe the events of October 7, 2023. Protesters say Prime Minister Netanyahu's government refuses to be held accountable for the Hamas-led attack that triggered the Gaza war. Voting is underway in Myanmar's heavily restricted elections. The ruling junta claims the exercise is a return to democracy 5 years after it ousted the last elected government. But critics say that polls are just a rebranding of martial rule. Authorities report no damage after a 7-magnitude earthquake strikes Taiwan's northeast. The quake was felt across the island and shook buildings in the capital, Taipei. US sanctions on Russia's Lukoil are leaving American gas station owners in a limbo. Banks and card firms spooked, some stations forced to go cash only, even as Washington temporarily exempts the outlets amid wider geopolitical pressure on Moscow's oil industry. Our top focus on WION at this hour. Taiwan was rattled by a massive earthquake on Saturday. Taiwan's weather agency put the magnitude at 7. However, the U.S. Geological Survey, USGEP, has said that intensity of the earthquake at 6.6 on the Richter scale. Well, it is the second major tremor to hit the island within days. On Wednesday, a 6.1 magnitude earthquake had struck Taiwan's southeast. Saturday's quake hit at 11:05 p.m. local time, some 32 kilometers off Taiwan's northeastern coastal city of Yilan. Yilan County's Fire Bureau said there were no immediate reports of casualties or damage. It also temporarily disrupted electricity supply in town. Taiwan Railways said it suspended 4 trains operating in Yilan, affecting more than 270 passengers. The quake caused buildings in the capital Taipei to sway, and local media said that it was felt across Taiwan. Taipei's metro lines were running at reduced speed for around 20 minutes until no abnormalities were reported in the stations and tracks. Taiwan lies near the junction of two tectonic plates and is prone to earthquakes. Now, more than 100 people were killed in a quake in southern Taiwan in 2016, while a 7.3 magnitude quake killed more than 2,000 people in 1999. Russia continues to pummel Ukraine with hundreds of missiles and drones. Well, the attacks come as Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky is heading to Washington, D.C. for crucial talks with President Donald Trump. Nearly 500,000 people in Kyiv were left without power on Saturday after a massive Russian attack. High-rise apartment buildings stood in darkness. Diesel generators were put to use to generate power. State grid operators said that energy facilities across Ukraine were struck by Russia and emergency power cuts had been implemented across the capital. Ukraine's foreign minister said a third of Kyiv was left without heat by the strikes. Temperatures in Kyiv hovered around 0 degrees Celsius. Russia attacked Kyiv and other parts of Ukraine with hundreds of missiles and drones. Kyiv regional governor said the attack killed a 47-year-old woman and wounded 24 others. An air alert lasted several hours after loud explosions, some accompanied by bright flashes that turned the sky orange. Kyiv's mayor said that over 2,500 residential buildings and hundreds of kindergartens, schools and social buildings lost heat. En route to the US, Zelensky said that the Russian onslaught showed that Moscow had no intention of ending the invasion. He consulted with allies and won renewed expressions of support. During a stopover in Canada, the Ukrainian president spoke first with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. He then briefed EU, NATO and European leaders in a conference call.
Discussed 20 points. Our attitude to the territorial issue, to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, to money issues. Now it is easier for us. As we said in the 20 points, we are already 90% ready because there is a decision. Some may like it, some may not. But nevertheless, Ukraine will receive 100 billion.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed that Moscow could see Kyiv was in no hurry to end the Ukraine conflict by peaceful means. Putin repeated his warning that if Ukraine did not want to resolve the conflict peacefully, then Russia would accomplish all the goals of its special military operation by force. Listen in.
If the authorities in Kyiv do not want to solve the issue in a peaceful way, we will reach all of the goals set in the course of the special military operation, Russia's war efforts in Ukraine, by military means.
The Russian president inspected one of the command posts of the Russian armed forces. He was informed that Moscow's forces had captured 3 new towns in Ukraine's Donetsk region, as well as 2 towns in the Zaporizhzhia region. Now, one of these towns in Mirnorad, footage released by the Russian Defense Ministry showed Russian flags being waved in the frontline town. However, Kyiv said that it had beaten back Russian assaults in the towns. After nearly 5 years of civil war and political turmoil, Myanmar's ruling military junta is staging elections. Well, it's a move that's widely been criticized as an attempt to legitimize its grip on power. The heavily restricted polls opened on Sunday, with the ruling junta claiming the vote marks a return to democracy 5 years after it ousted the last elected government. Now, there will be no voting in rebel-held areas in junta-controlled territory. The first of 3 rounds started at 6 a.m. local time. The second round of voting will be held in 2 weeks, with the final phase scheduled for January 25th. Even as the junta concedes polling stations, polling cannot take place in nearly one of the 5 lower house constituencies. Former Democratic leader Aung San Suu Kyi and her massively popular National League for Democracy party, which won a landslide in the last vote, are not taking part. As pro-military Union Solidarity and Development Party is widely expected to emerge as the largest one in the elections. Campaigners, Western diplomats and the UN rights chief have condemned the months-long phased-out votes, citing a military-dominated ballot and a harsh crackdown on dissent. Furthermore, displaced civilians across Myanmar are also rejecting the junta's election, describing the process as unfair and lacking legitimacy.
It is impossible for this election to be fair, and the military is holding an unfair vote. We are homeless now, and we cannot support it while our lives are hanging between life and death in the jungles. How can we support a junta-run election when this military junta has destroyed our lives? I can't support their election at all.
Myanmar was ruled by the military for much of its post-independence history, before a decades-long opening brought a civilian government to power amid hopes of reform. That period ended after Aung San Suu Kyi's party overwhelmingly defeated pro-military rivals in the 2020 election, prompting Army Chief Min Aung Hlaing to seize power in a coup, alleging widespread voter fraud. Now Suu Kyi is serving a 27-year prison sentence on charges ranging from corruption to breaching COVID-19 rules. Allegations that rights groups say are politically motivated. Most parties that contested the 2020 vote, including Suu Kyi's, have since been dissolved. Pakistan has intensified its crackdown on supporters of imprisoned former Prime Minister Imran Khan. And this time, the battle has spilled beyond its borders, pulling the United Kingdom into a sharp and sensitive diplomatic standoff. Islamabad has summoned the acting British High Commissioner and issued a formal demarche accusing protesters in the UK, allegedly linked to Imran Khan's party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, of inciting violence against Pakistan's Army Chief, Field Marshal Syed Asim Munir. Now, at the centre of the row is a video from a protest outside the Pakistani consulate in Bradford, shared by a PTI-linked social media account. In the video, a woman is heard making what the Pakistani government describes as direct and targeted threats, including a reference to a car bomb against the country's top military leader. Pakistan says that this is not free speech or political protest, but a clear national security threat and a violation of international law as well as the UK's Terrorism Act. The Pakistani government has formally asked London to identify, arrest, investigate and prosecute those responsible, warning that failure to act would force Islamabad to consider other legal options. The United Kingdom, however, has cautioned that any action would depend on the evidence which is being shared with the UK police and assessed under British law. The latest move comes against the backdrop of a broader push by Islamabad against overseas critics of the military. Earlier this month, Pakistan submitted extradition papers to the UK for former Prime Minister Imran Khan's ex-aide, Shehzad Akbar, and YouTuber Adil Raja, accusing them of targeting state institutions and spreading anti-state consent from British soil. The Interior Minister has also warned that Pakistani content creators and activists living abroad will not be spared if they are seen as challenging the armed forces or the state. The PTI, for its part, has pushed back, saying the Bradford video was removed out of caution, insisting that the remarks were metaphorical and warnings of what it calls transnational repression against Imran Khan supporters living overseas. The party argues that under the current power structure in Pakistan, dissent is being criminalized while public anger continues to grow over Imran Khan's prolonged incarceration and alleged inhumane prison conditions. And the Supreme Court of India will hear a plea filed by the CBI in 2017 Unnao rape case on Monday. CBI has challenged a Delhi High Court order to suspend the life sentence of expelled BJP leader Kuldeep Singh Sengar. The plea will be heard by a Supreme Court bench comprising Chief Justice Suryakant and Justices J.K. Maheshwari and Augustine George Massey, as per the Apex Court's cause list for December 29th. The top court will also hear a separate petition filed by victims' advocates against Delhi High Court's order in the case. The Delhi High Court on December 23rd had suspended the jail term of Sengar, stating that former BJP lawmaker has already served 7 years and 5 months in prison. The court has suspended his jail term till the pendency of his appeal challenging his conviction and sentence. Now, Sengar, who is serving a life sentence in the Unnao rape case, has challenged a December 29 trial court verdict in the case. Although Sengar will remain imprisoned as he continues to serve 10 years in the custodial death case of the victim's father. Kuldeep Singh Sengar, who kidnapped and raped the survivor when she was a minor, had also challenged his conviction in the custodial death of the victim's father, but he has not been granted bail. The Delhi High Court has imposed several conditions on Sengar, directing him to furnish a personal bond of 15 lakh rupees. Now, Sengar has also been directed not to come within a 5-kilometer radius of the survivor's residence. He has been asked not to threaten survivor or her mother, warning that violating any of these conditions would lead to the cancellation of bail. A slew of protests had erupted after Delhi High Court suspended Sengar's life imprisonment. As the decision was also announced by the survivor's mother, on Saturday, several activists and Congress leaders were also detained while staging a sit-in protest near the parliament. And Israel's recognition of Somaliland is creating ripples across the globe. The US and Arab countries are voicing strong opposition to the diplomatic move. And this comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump prepare to meet for talks on Monday. In a New York Post interview, Trump stated that he opposes US recognition of Somaliland. This follows Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a prominent Trump ally, announcing Israel has become the first country to recognize it. According to a statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, the declaration is in the spirit of the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords are several agreements between Israel and the Arab countries, including the UAE and Bahrain, brokered by US President Donald Trump. Now, Trump did this during his first presidency to normalize ties between Israel and several Arab nations. Tel Aviv has also asked UAE to recognize Somaliland. However, they have not responded yet. Somalia has sharply condemned Israel's decision, describing it as a deliberate attack on its sovereignty. It further added that illegitimate actions of this nature seriously undermine regional peace and stability and also exacerbate political and security tensions. Somaliland, which declared independence from Somalia in 1991, has spent decades seeking international recognition. It has been the top priority for President Abdi Rahman Mohamed Abdullahi since taking office last year. Somalia's Al-Qaeda-linked militant group, Al-Shabaab, has vowed to fight the move. The group released a statement saying it would oppose any attempt by Israel to claim or use parts of Somaliland. The African Union echoed Somalia's rejection of any recognition of Somaliland, warning that such a move undermines Somalia's unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. The African Union also said that it could set a dangerous precedent for peace and stability across Africa. Somalia's close ally Turkey also condemned the decision, calling it overt interference in Somalia's domestic affairs. Egypt joined Turkey in rejecting the move and reaffirmed its full support for Somalia's unity and sovereignty. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has also joined the group in condemning Israel and offering support to Somalia. Analysts say that strategic interests drove Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland. Israel has repeatedly struck targets in Yemen since the Gaza war erupted in October 2023, responding to Houthi attacks claimed as solidarity with Palestinians. Now, the Houthis paused those strikes after a fragile Gaza truce that took hold in October this year. Somaliland enjoys a strategic position on the Gulf of Aden, has its own currency, passports and army. But since its unilateral declaration of independence in 1991, it has grappled with decades of isolation and has for decades pushed for international recognition. That has been the key priority for President Abdullahi since he took office last year. Somaliland's lack of international recognition has hampered access to foreign loans, aid and investment, and the territory remains deeply impoverished. Britain is set to test a new path into military service, targeting young people who may never have considered the armed forces before. Well, from March 2026, a pilot gap year scheme will offer around 150 youngsters under the age of 25 paid training and hands-on experience across the Army, Navy and Air Force without any long-term commitment. Now, the move comes as defense leaders grapple with a sharp drop in recruitment, with training numbers significantly lower than pre-pandemic levels and more recruits leaving before completion. The government says the program is designed to reconnect society with the military, giving youth and the young people a first-hand look at defense skills while strengthening national readiness. It also follows a stark warning from the new head of the armed forces as Britain reassesses its security posture amid rising global threats, including from Russia. Inspired by a similar model in Australia, the scheme could eventually expand to more than 1,000 places a year, depending on the interest, of course. And several European countries have already turned to national service or defense training programs this year as strategic tensions grow across the continent. For now, key details including pay and funding remain unclear, with the government saying that more information will be released in the coming months. Well, 2025 has been a turbulent year for the job market with over 1.17 million layoffs in the US alone. This is the highest since the pandemic. Now, headlines point to AI as a major culprit, responsible for nearly 55,000 job cuts as per a study conducted by MIT. October alone saw 153,000 layoffs, with more than 6,000 attributed to AI. With inflation rising, tariffs adding costs and firms cutting expenses, AI has become an attractive tool for short-term cost savings. The MIT study shows that AI could already perform 11.7% of US labor tasks. This can potentially save $1.2 trillion in wages across finance, healthcare, and professional services. But Vanguard research suggests that jobs most exposed to AI, like data scientists, office clerks, and HR assistants, are actually growing. With higher wages and increased productivity, the report says that AI is helping employees shift towards higher value tasks rather than replacing them entirely. Experts know that many companies overhired during the pandemic, and recent layoffs may simply reflect market corrections. Entry-level workers, particularly Gen Z, are bearing the brunt, with fewer job postings and reduced hiring at major tech firms. As of now, while AI reshapes the labor market, broader economic pressures and corporate adjustments are also driving workforce changes. "2026 is shaping up to be one of the most ambitious years in Hollywood history. Not only will this year be witnessing the return of iconic fashionistas, but also the return of Christopher Nolan, Russo brothers, and Steven Spielberg in the director's chair. Well, following the $1.3 billion success of the first film, Nintendo and Illumination are heading to the stars. While Chris Pratt and Jack Black return, the big news is the introduction of Brie Larson as Princess Rosalina and Benny Safdie as Bowser Jr. 20 years later, Miranda Priestley is back. The sequel finds Meryl Streep's iconic character navigating the death of Print, while forced to go head-to-head with a former assistant, Emily, who is now a high-powered executive at a luxury conglomerate. The core four of the film, that is Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, and Stanley Tucci, are all confirmed to return, with Kenneth Branagh joining as Miranda's new husband.
Miranda? Took you long enough.
In June, Steven Spielberg will return as a director with Disclosure Day. The teaser features a star-studded cast including Emily Blunt alongside Josh O'Connor and Colin Firth. The film confirms the legendary director's return to the genre that defined much of his career. Disclosure Day is scheduled for a June 12, 2026 release.
Today is...
The month of July will be locked for a Nolan release again. Fresh off its Oscar sweep for Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan is tackling Homer's ancient Greek epic, shot entirely on brand new IMAX film technology. The film stars Matt Damon as Odysseus, and a recently released trailer teases a gritty, mythic action epic featuring massive shipwreck and a terrifying encounter with Cyclops. The massive ensemble includes Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Tom Holland as Telemachus, and supporting cast includes Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, and Lupita Nyong'o. The Russo brothers return to the MCU to helm a crossover event that aims to rival Endgame. The biggest talking point remains Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans' return to the franchise. The film serves as a collision point for the Fantastic Four, the Thunderbolts, and the X-Men, setting the stage for 2027's Secret Wars. And with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break, but don't go anywhere. Coming up on the other side, the Indian Army has intensified counter-terror operations in Jammu and Kashmir. This is despite harsh winter conditions. Security forces are active in Kishtwar and Doda. Details coming up on the other side. Stay tuned, you're watching Beyond World is One.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
बचपन से पढ़ाया गया है, अरावली हमारी लाइफलाइन है, तो आज कहाँ है वो लाइफलाइन? अगर सरकार को यही फैसला लेना था।
अरावली को नहीं मिटने देंगे। यहाँ का आम आदमी सड़क से लेकर के संसद तक इसका विरोध कर रहा है।
ये सब काट देंगे, सब जीव जंतु कहाँ पे जाएंगे?
खनन अभी से चालू हो गया, आप जाके देख सकते हो।
ये जजमेंट कायम रहा, कहीं न कहीं इस पूरे देश को ये नुकसान होना तय है।
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
It's straight out of a sci-fi film. Drones in the air and under the oceans, identifying targets and attacking at will, while autonomous defense systems on the ground track and knock the drones out of the sky. Sometimes humans still need to push a button. At other times, an algorithm makes the call. Man playing God has never worked out well. And if we give robots the choice to make life and death decisions, then will we ever be able to take that back? Don't miss Rise of the Machines, a special year-ender episode only on WION at these times.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building, coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building, coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One with me, Diksha Bisla. We have lots lined up for you on this bulletin, but first, a quick check on the headlines. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky says he is hopeful for a constructive discussion on security guarantees with US President Donald Trump during his latest trip. Zelensky is expected to meet Trump in Florida on Sunday. Ukrainian authorities say nearly 500,000 people in Kyiv are left without power after a massive Russian attack targeting energy facilities across the country. They said a third of Kyiv residents had no heat as temperatures hovered around 0 degrees Celsius. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says that Tehran is at a full-fledged war with the United States, Europe and Israel. He claims that Iran is now stronger than during the 12-day war, and any new enemy provocation will face a stronger response. A group of 21 mostly Muslim countries, including Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, issued a joint statement rejecting Israel's move to recognize Somaliland. 3 countries that normalized ties with Israel in 2020, that is the UAE, Bahrain and Morocco, did not sign the statement. Israelis rally in Tel Aviv demanding an independent state commission of inquiry to probe the events of October 7, 2023. Protesters say Prime Minister Netanyahu's government refuses to be held accountable for the Hamas-led attack that triggered the Gaza war. Voting is underway in Myanmar's heavily restricted elections. The ruling junta claims the exercise is a return to democracy 5 years after it ousted the last elected government. But critics say that the polls are just a rebranding of martial rule. Authorities report no damage after a 7-magnitude earthquake strikes Taiwan's northeast. The quake was felt across the island and shook buildings in the capital, Taipei. In Pakistan, PTI has announced a rally at Lahore's Minar-e-Pakistan today as part of its street movement. This as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Chief Minister Sohail Afridi visits residences of incarcerated party leaders in the city. India's domestic airlines issue advisories to alert passengers over possible delays due to bad weather. This as dense fog engulfs parts of north, east and northeast India. Chile is creating a lithium giant. State-owned Codelco and private miner SQM have formed a new company to boost lithium output in the Atacama Desert, aiming to restore Chile's global leadership in EV battery supplies through 2060. Russia continues to pummel Ukraine with hundreds of missiles and drones. The attacks come as Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky is heading to US for crucial talks with President Donald Trump. Nearly 500,000 people in Kyiv were left without power on Sunday after a massive Russian attack. High-rise apartment buildings stood in darkness. Diesel generators were put to use to generate power. This while state grid operators said that energy facilities across Ukraine were struck by Russia and emergency power cuts had been implemented across the capital. Ukraine's foreign minister said a third of Kyiv was left without heat as the strikes, and the temperature in Kyiv hovered around 0 degrees Celsius. Russia attacked Kyiv and other parts of Ukraine with hundreds of missiles and drones. Kyiv regional governor said that the attack killed a 47-year-old woman and wounded 24 others. An air alert lasted several hours after loud overnight explosions, some accompanied by bright flashes that turned